All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 30th, 2021 edition of the San Ramon City Update. Today, we'll be discussing the drought conditions. We're officially in a drought now. I don't know why my video keeps turning off, but we have guests today from both DSRSD and EBMUD. I'd like to introduce Director John Coleman with EBMUD, Charles Bohlig with EBMUD as well, and Alice Towey. They'll be discussing what's going on in their neck of the woods and some of the things that are going on in particular with conservation efforts now that we are officially in the second year of the drought, but not in a drought emergency. So I'm sure we'll go over that. And we also have Jan Lee from DSRSD to discuss what's going on with their agency as well. I'd like to remind everybody, if you're watching live, you can submit questions to info@sanramon.ca.gov. And Simone Finney, our communications and engagement analyst, she will be handling the questions at the end. If you are not watching this live, you can go ahead and submit those questions to us as well after the fact, and we'll make sure to get you the proper answers. But to begin, I'd like to give a brief city update of what's going on in San Ramon over the next week or so. And I'd like to mention that tonight we do have a dive-in movie at the San Ramon Olympic Pool. They will be showing Jumanji: The Next Level. Great film. Loved it with my daughter. It was a fun film. Rec Swim begins at 7 p.m. and the movie starts at 8:15 and runs approximately 2 hours. The event is free and there's no need to pre-register. Sunday, August 1st, we have our next Summer in the Park concert series with V-Days playing Bollywood music at Central Park Amphitheater beginning at 5:30 p.m. Again, admission is free. There will be food served along with beer, wine, soda, and water will be available for purchase. Blankets and low-back lawn chairs are recommended, but as a reminder, shade tents and umbrellas should be set up at the top of the hill to avoid impeding the view of others. We also have our applications are open for Pass 2 class, formerly known as the School Pool Student Transit Ticket Program. It offers free bus passes to Contra Costa students at the beginning of the school year, up to 2 months of rides on Tri-Delta Transit, WestCat, County Connection, or AC Transit are being offered for the school year to help students return to in-person learning. Passes are available while supplies last. It's limited to 2 students per household, and you could apply at 511contracosta.org. Also on Saturday, August 7th, the Open Space Committee will be leading a hike at the Amador Rancho Community Center that begins at 8 a.m. The hike will follow Quail Run and Village Center Loop trails and is approximately 2.25 miles long. There's beautiful views of the ravines and the surrounding neighborhoods. Trails mostly paved, and residents are advised to wear the appropriate footwear. Dogs are allowed but must be leashed at all times, and the walk is free. Pre-registration is required, so you can visit sanramon.ca.gov for more info and to register. And I'd also like to note, if it is a hot day, it still stays pretty cool around 8 a.m. and the hike is over before the peak. So, be aware of the heat conditions, but don't let that deter you from a very nice hike. So with that, that's all of our city updates for this morning. I'd like to turn it over to EBMUD for their presentation.
Good morning, Stephen. My name is John Coleman. I'm the director for Ward 2, which encompasses one half of San Ramon and the remainder of the San Ramon Valley. So the question is really the drought. Are we in a drought? Yes, we are. And our mantra this year is make every drop count, because the drought and to you. We don't know what next year is going to bring. And based on not knowing whether we're going to have a wet year or a dry year in 2022, we have to assume it's going to be dry in order to make sure we preserve as much as possible our supplies going into the following year in order to minimize the impact to all our customers. If I could have the next slide, please, that would be great. So literally our water, 90% of it comes from Party Reservoir, which is in the foothills of Sierra Nevada. A good way to put it in perspective: if you're at Bear Valley and you look north, ski resort, and you're at Kirkwood, you look south, that is a watershed which we collect much of it is snowmelt, goes into Party Reservoir 90 miles across the delta, which are fragile due to earthquake and other hazards, to our water treatment plant in Walnut Creek near Rocky Park. And the water is purified, then sent to our distribution system. And from there, we then go and deliver to everybody's home. Next slide, please. So what are we trying to do from our long-term water supply planning? We're constantly updating our long-term water supply in terms of what we need to do. And really, it's a combination of water conservation, which we're asking now people to conserve their water usage. It's water transfers, which we're going to be looking at doing in 2022, purchasing water from outside entities in addition to the California from the CVP this year. We're going to be getting some water, recycled water, which plays a critical role in the San Ramon Valley with our joint project with DSRSD, which I'm sure we'll go into later, as well as groundwater banking, which we're doing in parts of our service area, as well as in the San Joaquin Valley. We're also under negotiations, as many people are joining the enlarged Los Vaqueros project that Contra Water District is involved with, that would allow us to bank basically more water for dry years. And really, it's partnerships. One thing that's been unique in my tenure at EBMUD, at one point, EBMUD used to do everything alone, go it alone. Fortunately, that has changed over time. Now people work together, because really working together, we're going to solve our problems much sooner and less costly, and everybody in our community will benefit. Next slide, please. So what we're looking at doing is we are in stage 2, which is a significant drought, and that's based on how much water we're going to have in storage. We're anticipating that it's going to be about 400 to 425,000 acre feet at the end of September. That's when we evaluate what our water storage is. And then from there, we're able to determine what we need to do. So what we're asking for is a 10% overall drought reduction. I think for single family homes, it's 15% when you add it in. And really, we're basing it also on the 2013 drought. In part, and staff came to us with this perspective, and it was a good idea. Rather than saying what it was last year when everybody was home during the pandemic, when water usage, when water usage was higher, we're going back to the earlier number, and that's we're using it based on the last year's numbers rather than 2013 in order to give people greater flexibility in terms of their water usage. And we don't know exactly when people will be going back to the office and schools, hopefully soon, but we don't want to have an impact on people's lives as much as possible. Next slide, please. So a couple of things. In our service area, this was the driest year in our 98-year history. Very simply, we had about 9 inches of rainfall in our service area around the Lafayette Reservoir. We normally have close to 30 inches of rainfall. In our watershed, in the McCullough watershed, it was our second driest year of record. I think we were at 52% of precipitation. And as a result, that snow that we did get, it was less than in the past. And one thing we saw amazingly happen was that everybody, the snow melted so quickly, and we literally in a 2-week period lost 75,000 acre feet of water that was going to be going into our system because of the dry, hot weather, and that also has an impact. So what we're really trying to do is look towards the future and make sure that we have a less of an impact to all of our customers. And again, we're asking for 10% voluntary reduction throughout our service area in our category, and actually with stage 1. The state is trying to push us towards stage 2. But we're seeing what happens, and we don't know what's going to happen with the State Water Board. They may dictate to all water agencies how they have to operate. And if that's the case, then we may have to change our position, as will all water agencies in the state. So I just encourage you, and I'll be handing this off to staff, save water, use it wisely. If it's going down your gutter, you're using too much. And please use it wisely for everybody's sake. Going into 2022, we don't know what it's going to bring. Next slide, please. And so now I'm going to turn it over to the EBMUD staff, who can really go into the details of what we need to do.
Thanks, John. So it's kind of our little points that we're gonna cover today. I'm talking about irrigating efficiently, and then transition into leaks that are oftentimes very sneaky, hard to find. And Alice will finish up with indoor. Next slide, please. So one thing about irrigation and during a drought, there's a lot of discretionary water use that can be cut back. And it's during these times that we're asking customers to use water more efficiently outside, especially in lawn areas. Through the last 20 years, people and in the industry of landscaping have installed a cool season turf. And it's fine to let that grass get a little bit of a straw color. It'll come back just fine in the fall when the rains, keep my fingers crossed, when the rains do return. So we're asking all of our customers to do not irrigate their turf or their grass more than 3 times a week. And for shrubs and trees, which are well established, 1 time a week. With that, you can see in that photo in the top right-hand corner, there's a couple things going bad on that one. First of all, you can see the misting. So that irrigation system has really high pressure. And so you can see that misting. It's being irrigated in the middle of the day or in the daylight hours. So there's an issue oftentimes with wind drift and evaporation on that. And then there's overspray. So we're asking customers to avoid those sort of things. Watering the concrete, no matter how much you're going to do it, it's not going to grow. So make sure you keep your water and use it with a purpose. Keep it on your landscaping. We ask people to irrigate at dusk and dawn. As I mentioned, a lot of things that are going on with this photo can be avoided. In addition to the, if you get a pressure regulator on it, but in the evening and when it's dark, you have less evaporation, so there's a better chance for that water to soak into the soil. And then also at the same time, there's less wind drift. There's less, as soon as the sun goes down, the wind typically gets lighter, and then that water falls where it's supposed to. We got a really nice tool that I recommend all of you to go to and put it up right next to your irrigation controller, and that's a landscape watering schedule. And as you can see on that top little, I guess those little icons, if you've got spray, impact rotors, high efficiency nozzles, drip, whatever sort of irrigation type that you have, we have a wonderful watering schedule for you to help follow on that one. Next, Alice. So common irrigation problems. I'll get through the photos in just a moment. So poor coverage. Poor coverage means that the water is not going essentially, if it's designed correct, the water from one irrigation head touches the other one and vice versa. When you have a poor designed irrigation system, you have brown spots. And what oftentimes is that the typical response is people turn on the irrigation for a longer period of time. When that happens, you get runoff because the water, we have a lot of clay soils. It absorbs maybe 1/3 of an inch in any particular event. And so that poor coverage causes other issues, that runoff and overspray. Overspray is one thing that people oftentimes don't think too much of, but I want people to kind of, when you go out to your homes this weekend or when you get back from work, well, or actually since we're working from home, many of us, when you go out for a little break outside to get some fresh air, check to see if you have any arches on your fence, like those white sort of arches. That means your water from your irrigation system is hitting it, and you'll end up replacing your fence probably sooner than you want to due to property damage on that one. I mentioned the high pressure and the misting. That is, we've got some rebates that I'll cover in a couple slides. That's another one to avoid. Mismatch irrigation equipment on the same zone. That is essentially having overhead spray and drip. That's something they do not recommend. Means either you're going to flood one plant or starve another plant. So make sure that your irrigation equipment on every irrigation zone is the same. And then is spray suitable for all areas? So sometimes in planter beds, people have overhead spray, and as the plant, and it would be fine when the plants are very small, but as they grow up and get larger, that water just hits that plant and just kind of falls straight down, may not help the development of the plant and cause a runoff ahead of time on that one. And then we also have improperly programmed irrigation controllers. And I like to think this is like a scheduled leak. So if your irrigation controller, if the battery sometimes goes dead in it, so irrigation controllers, people oftentimes forget there's little backup batteries in there, little 9-volt batteries, the same batteries that you have in your smoke detectors. So if there's a little powder outage, sometimes those irrigation controllers go back to the factory defaults, which is 10 minutes every zone every day. So You'll want to make sure that that backup batteries is fresh. And I always tell people, you know, when you do the either the spring ahead or fall back, I can't remember which one, to replace the battery in your smoke detectors. Also, it's a good time to go out to the garage or the side of the house and replace that battery on that one. And then the properly controlled, or excuse me, programmed controllers also helps you water efficiently. So you see those little photos on the bottom. You can see those first two spray heads. That's a classic thing, is that the person that mows that grass is going over those irrigation heads at the same direction every single time. So once a week. So what happens is that irrigation head slowly keeps going down over to the side, and then you get a spray that comes out kind of goofy. And then as a result, one area gets a lot of water and then the other area doesn't. And then you start creating brown spots, and then you start irrigating more. Drip irrigation. Animals get thirsty, and I hate to say it, but they love those little irrigation tubes. They kind of like to chew on it. And as a result, make sure you check those for little nicks and damage. Sometimes when you go out and you do a little bit of gardening, sometimes your spade can cut it too if you don't quite see it. And then the other time is the broken heads, and you can see that little drip irrigation tube has just been severed right there. Next slide. We have a great lawn conversion rebate program. So if the only time that you're on your lawn is and you have a lawnmower in front of you, might be time to convert it into a native landscaping. Next slide. So we have a lawn conversion rebate program that we incentivize customers to take those discretionary sort of like lawns that aren't being used, or those really small inefficient strips, replace it with a native garden. We also have a suite of other offerings. So as I mentioned before, converting overhead spray to drip. High efficiency nozzles, that's instead of like the fan, complete fan spray, this is like a little shower head. So you get a lot of little sprays coming on out. Bigger water droplets, those bigger water droplets drop where the water is supposed to go. There's less wind drift. And it also slows the rate that the water's going on the landscaping. So there's a better percolation on that. Smart irrigation controllers, those are ones that actually get signals from the weather, and then it helps get you more of a diagonal curve. So in the spring, water's less. Summer, it'll water more. And then the same thing, water less in the fall. So it saves on those shoulder seasons. Pressure regulators, that is the one, that first picture that I showed of that high spray and misting. Those pressure regulators pulls that back on down, so you have a more effective irrigation system. And then submeters. Submeters are great for large commercial sites. It helps you actually manage that water and keep an eye on how much water is going through there. Next slide. Right now, we do have a couple pilot programs we call super rebates and medians. Instead of 75 cents per square foot, we're upping it to $1.50 right now. So on the super rebates, pretty much focused towards single family. We have 3 best practices. You got to do sheet mulching. That's where you put cardboard down and then compost and mulch on top of it. And then we're asking for 50% native plants. And that'll get you up to the next level of the incentive. And then medians. This is special for cities, HOAs, things of that nature. It's time to get rid of those little grass strips. They're really difficult to irrigate efficiently. They're just kind of there. We understand that there's safety for opening the car door, but there's a lot of other sort of plants that have a low sort of profile to be able to put in those areas. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about leaks, and then I'm going to hand it off to Alice. So one more slide. So on the outside, boy, we've been talking to people for years to irrigate in the middle of the night, et cetera. Well, it's worked, but unfortunately what happens is broken heads. Somebody goes over it, lops it off with the weed whacker or lawnmower, and then you have a little fountain that's going on at 3 o'clock in the morning, and unfortunately you don't see it. So this Saturday, make sure you go out there, turn on your irrigation, make sure that your heads are aligned properly, check for any broken irrigation heads. Check for stuck irrigation valves too. There's a little diaphragm in there. Sometimes little pieces of dirt or plastic get in there. It doesn't seat all the way. And as a result, they kind of weep water. And that can be a big water loss for you. So the irrigation system, check it on out. Potential, they're sneaky and they're in the middle of the night. So, and also too, if you go out like 5 o'clock in the morning, pick up the paper, those of you that still get a paper in the morning, check to make sure you have no water running down the curb. And if you do, make sure you take a look and see where the cause of on that one. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Alice, and she'll take on over in the next section.
Thanks so much, Charles. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, thanks. Okay, so Charles talked a lot about sort of outdoor irrigation and things you can do to save water outside. I'm going to continue with the theme of leaks, but I'm going to take things back inside the house. And so I would like to introduce everybody to the usual suspects. So from all our work with customers over the years and what we hear back from customers when we send them leak alerts, we find that the biggest culprits are toilets and outdoor irrigation. So Charles already talked a little bit about outdoor irrigation. It's very common to have those leaks, like he mentioned, especially if folks are mowing over sprinkler heads or if there's animals chewing on the pipes. We also find that toilets tend to have a lot of leaks, particularly when we have flappers that aren't settling properly or that are installed incorrectly. We also do see a lot of leaking faucets and then shower heads that either leak or are not efficient. So I tell people these are the usual suspects. If you see any of these hardened criminals in your neighborhood, please call your local water district immediately. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about toilets, since those are another really common source of leak. And it's always really surprising with the leaks that even just a very small one, even if it's just a little dripping faucet, that leak can really add up over time. It can turn out to be quite a big volume of water, and that can actually hit your water bill pretty significantly as well. Toilet leaks, very common. The easiest thing to do is this dye tab test, where you basically, we have toilet dye tabs that we can provide, or you can even just use food coloring that you might have in your kitchen. You just put a few drops in the tank of the toilet, just leave it, for 10, 20 minutes, and then come back and look in the bowl. And if you see that the water in the toilet bowl has changed color, that says that you have a leak and that you need to check your flapper. With replacing the toilet flapper, you want to be careful and make sure that you get one that's the right model for your toilet, because if you get a flapper that's an incorrect model, that's a mismatch, that can actually make the situation worse. Now, another thing that I highly recommend to folks from the indoor perspective, at EBMUD, we have this free WaterSmart home water survey kit. So this is a little kit that we will mail to you. Excuse me. It's got a few things in it. It's got an illustrated kind of handbook with step-by-step instructions, so you can kind of go through your house and check for leaks and check for the efficiency of your appliances and faucets. We include in that kit, we include the dye tabs, so you can do that toilet test that I just talked about. There's also a little plastic measuring bag, a little flow bag, so that you can measure the volume that's coming out of your faucets and shower heads. Most, indoors water use in California is pretty efficient these days. Most folks have updated, their toilets and clothes washers and things, but we do sometimes find that there are those shower heads or sinks that are a little bit older that, are running at a higher volume than you need. So if you go through this process and you fill out the worksheet and you send it to us, we'll actually send you devices if you need them. So like if you find that your sink is running at too high a flow rate, we'll send you an aerator. We'll send you a low flow shower head. We have hoses with little hose heads with the nozzle on them. And we'll send all those things to you for free. So you can order that online if you go to the ebmud.com/store. And for those of you who have kids, that's a fun activity to do with your kids, is to get them to help you, measure flow rates and check the toilet and things like that. So we highly encourage that. Also, if you really want to monitor for leaks, because probably not everybody has time to do the home water survey kit every week or every month or something like that, we really encourage you to sign up for our web portal. You go to ebmud.com/mywaterinfo. And if you sign on to that portal, there are a couple things that you can do that I'm going to talk about that can help you monitor for leaks. So you can see here up at the top, you can track your water use. So you can actually kind of just look at what your consumption is over time. And you can kind of compare it, month over month, compare it to the previous year, see if you're kind of, meeting your own personal water goals. You can also sign up for leak alerts. And this is a really, really exciting tool that we offer. So basically this computer system will just will just be kind of monitoring your water use over time. And if we see certain kind of suspicious things happen, like if we see that the water use is just sort of consistently high, if it's a lot higher than it has been, like if suddenly, if you're using 300 gallons a day and then suddenly, whoa, it jumps up to like 600 or 700 gallons a day, it'll actually send you a notification, and you can decide whether you want that notification by email or by text. And that notification will just say to you like, hey, got some high water use, you might want to check it out, you might have a leak. And it gives a link to some different resources we have, including our leak resolution tool that, again, will just, it'll just walk you through step by step checking for leaks. It has little videos, it has a lot of links to resources, so you can go through and make sure that you don't have a leak. So I highly recommend folks sign up for that. We also have a program we're doing right now. We have a rebate for flow meters. So these are little devices that you buy That, a lot of them are really easy to install. You can install them on the meter yourself, and then it communicates with your cell phone, and will just basically be checking your water use minute by minute. And so that's another really great way to kind of keep track of your water use and get those alerts in case you have high use or leaks. So as I mentioned before, indoor water use does tend to be pretty efficient in California these days, but especially when we're in a drought, we do want folks to be mindful of water use. There are things that you can do, and these small actions really do add up. I mean, a lot of times it's easy to get caught up in this mindset where you think, well, what I'm doing isn't making a big difference, whether I save a gallon or 2 gallons. But if you think about it just in terms of the whole Bay Area, if you think about it in terms of the whole East Bay Area, those little choices really add up. Like if everybody in East Bay Mud service area, if we all cut our shower by just 1 minute, so we all just took 1 minute shorter shower, collectively, we'd save 2 million gallons of water a day. So that really those little choices can make a big impact. And I just want to mention along that, we're going to be launching some advertising over the next month through some streaming audio services, where we're going to be recommending songs by local artists that are around the 5-minute mark so that you can time your showers. So I encourage you to think of your favorite musician and find a song that's right around 5 minutes, and you can time yourself and see if you're taking a short shower. We also encourage you to run full loads in the dishwasher and clothes washer. I always tell people your shower is not afraid to mingle. Your sweater is not afraid to mingle. You can, put clothes together in bigger loads. You can run the dishwasher full. That just reduces the amount of time that you're using those appliances. And so again, that can help save water. We do encourage folks, if you have dishes that you're scraping off, that you scrape those wastes in the compost bin instead of pre-rinsing, to save water that way. And then also, when folks use, garbage disposals, they oftentimes tend to use a lot of water to, kind of flush those wastes down. So definitely pre-scraping the plates helps save water. And then I do also like to encourage folks, if unless you're just washing like 1 or 2 dishes, typically dishwashers are a lot more efficient than washing by hand. So you can go ahead and be lazy and use the dishwasher. You can tell everyone that I gave you permission. You can say that you're doing it to save water. It's great. We appreciate it. And then I do want to encourage you to get in touch with us. I mean, East Bay Mud staff, we're here to help. We're your water agency. We love working with customers. We do audits and consultations. If you need help getting set up with that web portal I mentioned and setting up those leak alerts, you can give us a call or send us an email and we'll help out. We have staff that are available to do presentations or provide materials for businesses, for schools, for community groups that you might be part of. We really love, being part of the community and helping out. We really appreciate our customers and all their support. And I've got the email here, waterconservation@ebmud.com. So, if you have some questions, if you want to understand your water use better, if you're maybe interested in doing like that lawn rebate that Charles talked about, and you're just not quite sure how to get started, just send us an email or give us a call, and we're really happy to help you with that. And I just want to close by thanking you for helping us to save water. East Bay Mud, I'm always really proud to work for East Bay Mud. It's a wonderful, wonderful community. And our customers always do a great job during these drought situations of responding. And I know, the past year has really thrown a lot at us with, the pandemic and the wildfires and now the drought. But, just want to emphasize that, East Bay Mud is here for you and we're all in this together. Yeah, we look forward to continuing to serve you. So I think, with that, Steve, are we gonna pause for questions, or should I turn it over to Jan now?
Yeah, sure. We're turning it over to Jan, and then we'll have
Great.
questions after Jan's presentation. So Jan, feel free, go ahead and begin.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. So let me see if I can also successfully launch my PowerPoint. Let's see. Does everyone see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. So good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel discussion on water supply and the drought conditions. So East Bay Mud provides water service to about 2/3 of the city, and the Dublin San Ramon Services District, or DSRSD, provides water service to the remaining 1/3. So today, I'm basically tacking on to all the messages that East Bay Mud already said. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are right now in the second year of the drought and what we need to do to manage through these conditions. I'm going to touch on, as Director Coleman said, our very successful recycled water program that we developed and implemented in partnership with East Bay Mud. It's one of the critical tools for addressing droughts. And then briefly mention some of the long-term efforts that we're looking at to try to continue to improve our ability to address future droughts and impacts of climate change, and then also follow up with some next steps. So as I mentioned, let's see if I can put the laser pointer. DSRSD provides potable and recycled water service to 1/3 of the city of San Ramon, which is the Doherty Valley portion of the city. And then EBMUD here in the gray provides water service to the remaining 2/3. For our water supplies, it's a different system than EBMUD. We purchase approximately 75% of the water that we supply. It's treated drinking water from the Zone 7 Water Agency, who is our wholesale water agency. And the remaining water supply that we provide is recycled water. When you break down Zone 7's water supply sources, on average, Zone 7 receives about 90% of the water supply through the State Water Project and about 10% from local runoff. So this is runoff from the Del Valle watershed. The State Water Project is a system that's operated by the State Department of Water Resources. It delivers water up and down the state to 29 contractors, including Zone 7. Zone 7 then treats this water and distributes it to water retailers like DSRSD, and then we in turn deliver it to our customers within the city of San Ramon. In addition to these supply sources, Zone 7 also has a number of storage facilities that they use to store excess water in wet years. So they bank this water in wet years, and then they pull this water out of storage in dry years to help meet customer demands. And you're going to see in the next couple slides that this is exactly what Zone 7 intends to do this year. These storage facilities include our local groundwater basin, which is located underneath the cities of Livermore and Pleasanton, and then also groundwater facilities or groundwater banks located in Southern California. So similar to East Bay Mud, our water travel has quite a journey to get to the East Bay. For us, it travels over 150 miles coming from Lake Oroville, down the Feather River, down the Sacramento River, across the Delta, and then is pumped into the Tri-Valley. And when we look at our water supply system, you often hear us talk about the Delta because truly the Delta is the weak link of our system. Over time, there have been regulatory requirements that have been put in place that are protective of fish and water quality. These regulations limit the amount and the timing of when water can be pumped to the Delta, which affects our ability to deliver water to our customers. And the Delta is also vulnerable to sea level rise, other impacts of climate change, earthquakes, all of which could lead to catastrophic Delta levee failures. So as we look to the future, this is definitely a problem that we need to address. So turning to 2021 and where we are in the second year of a drought. This year's local and state rainfall was well below normal. Locally, this, and as East Bay Mud said, it's the same for the Del Valle watershed. It was the driest year on record. And what this led to was a 5% allocation for Zone 7 from the State Water Project. This is the lowest allocation that the State Water Project has delivered since 2014, which was also a 5% allocation. So to meet demands this year, Zone 7 plans to maximize pumping from the local groundwater bank and also maximize recovery of groundwater from those external or those groundwater banks in Southern California. Zone 7 also plans, again, similar to East Bay Mud, to purchase water from other willing sellers. So water transfers of up to 10,000 acre feet. And this next graphic is just a more complicated schematic showing how Zone 7 plans to meet delivery requests this year. On the left-hand side is your incoming supplies, that 5% State Water Project allocation I mentioned, water transfers, and very minimal runoff from the Del Valle watershed. So total incoming supplies are about 25%, and the bulk of the supply this year that will be delivered to customers is coming from storage. So about 75% from storage, from those local and Southern California groundwater banks. And then also Zone 7 has stored a small amount of water in surface water reservoirs. So they stored some water last year that they're going to retrieve this year to deliver to customers. So storage is a very important component to Zone 7's water system and their ability to meet demands and manage through droughts. What this graphic shows is a 5-year projection of storage balances. The kind of bluish color and purple are those groundwater banks I talked about, so the bulk of the storage capacity. And then the red and the green are surface water storage, so a much smaller amount. But what this graphic shows is at the end of 2020 or beginning this year in 2021, Zone 7 had about 234,000 acre feet in storage. So that represents about 4 years of storage. So even if next year is critically dry, Zone 7 anticipates that they have the storage volume to continue to manage through the drought. The difficulty for us is whether that water can be moved to where it needs to go. So one of the things that's critical for accessing those groundwater or accessing the water in those groundwater banks that are located south of the Delta is that the State Water Project and the Delta needs to be operational. As conditions continue to deteriorate, this could be fairly problematic next year. So it's something we're watching, but in terms of quantity, Zone 7 has water in storage, and it's about whether we can convey that water into the Tri-Valley. So what are we asking from our customers? Right now, we are asking for voluntary conservation, very similar to EBMUD. And this is because Zone 7 has not declared a water supply shortage. As you saw from the prior slides, Zone 7 anticipates being able to meet demands this year by pulling water out of storage. We are asking our customers to voluntarily conserve 15%. And this is in alignment with the governor's recent request to ask Californians to cut back 15% over 2020 usage. And I'll just kind of steal from EBMUD how every drop is precious. So any water we save this year will help next year. These photos, I asked staff to pull some recent photos from Lake Oroville, which is the primary reservoir for the State Water Project. And as you can see, these levels are extremely low. By the end of the summer, Oroville is actually anticipated to reach historic lows. One of the surprises this year is that the runoff that we anticipated from the snowmelt never reached the reservoir. So the ground conditions were so dry that the runoff just absorbed and didn't reach the reservoir. So how are we doing in terms of water usage? These blue bars represent our customer water usage from January through December for 2020. And these orange bars represent our 2021 usage. And through June, we're actually tracking slightly above 2020 usage. On June 15th, we put out the call or the request for 10% voluntary conservation. And on July 8th, we increased that request, again, in alignment with the governor's request to 15%. We recognize that it's been difficult with COVID. There's been more people working from home. But as we look toward the summer, there's still quite a bit of the summer left. And all of those fantastic tips that EBMUD gave in terms of trying to more efficiently use water outdoors applies in DSRSD service area as well. We see a lot of opportunity to try to use water more efficiently and cut back in the summer months. It gets a lot harder as we reach those winter months. So we're hoping that our customers can respond as they have in the past and cut back water usage in the months ahead. And we have tools to help. So one of the most efficient tools or effective tools that DSRSD has for our customers is the Aquaphoc customer portal. About 8 years ago, DSRSD invested and installed automated meters, and this allows real-time monitoring of water use by our customers. Over 70% of our customers have signed up for this tool, and that's just fantastic participation. And one of the benefits is to set your own leak alert. So Aquaphoc will send you a message if there's water continuously running in your household. This here is a graphic showing a customer's water usage by hour over a day. And you can kind of see these little blue blips here. And what that indicates is there's continuous water running at that household or being used. And that's most often an indication that there's a leak. So if you fix your leak using all those tips that Charles gave you, you might qualify for a leak rebate from DSRSD. So fixing leaks, it saves not only water, but it also saves you money as well. And again, this is just another plug for our customers to sign up for Aquaphoc. You can also use the mobile version. You can pay your bills by your phone whenever you have a free moment. Instead of just looking at all these different articles in the news, you can pull your water usage up and check that out at any time. And then we also offer through Zone 7 a number of rebates to help you conserve water more effectively. Recently, in the last couple of weeks, Zone 7 increased the maximum amounts for all their rebate programs. In some, for some rebates, they actually doubled the amount, the maximum amount that a customer could receive. So I would really encourage you, for example, the lawn conversion to drought tolerant plants. That's one that the maximum has increased pretty significantly. So I would encourage all of our customers to go to the Zone 7 website, zone7water.com, or our website, DSRSD.com, and check out these rebates. So then switching a little bit to talk about our recycled water program. It's always a good opportunity during droughts to highlight the benefits of our program. This uses a resource that would otherwise be discharged to San Francisco Bay and allows us to keep our communities looking green during droughts. This is a partnership, our program, between DSRSD and East Bay MUD. We began deliveries of recycled water in 2006, and in 2014, we began delivering recycled water to Pleasanton by way of contract. So right now, this program delivers recycled water to Dublin, San Ramon, and also the city of Pleasanton. And most importantly, it conserves our limited drinking water supplies. This program, as I mentioned, has been extremely successful. Last year, we delivered about 5,000 acre feet, which roughly translates into recycling about 40% of the flows that come to our wastewater treatment plant. And during summer months, we actually recycle every drop of wastewater that we receive. And about 25% of the water that we provide to the city of San Ramon is recycled water. In fact, this program has been so successful that we are actually out of recycled water, and until we find additional supplies, we have paused the program and we are not connecting any new customers. We have been working very closely, of course, with our partners, East Bay MUD and other agencies, looking at ways to supplement this program so we could continue to expand it. One of these projects is our temporary central sand diversion project that just came online in June. We're very excited about this project. It's a partnership with Central Contra Costa Sanitary District, where we divert a portion of their sewage into the DSRSD collection system, and that allows us to produce additional recycled water that we can then deliver to our customers. As I mentioned, the project came online in June, and it was definitely, you can see a number of staff from various agencies standing around when they turned the valve, or it was the gate, so they turned it and opened the gate, and the sewage flowed into DSRSD's collection system. So definitely a historic moment for us. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that there are a number of efforts that Zone 7 and DSRSD, the other retailers, other partner agencies are exploring to mitigate the risks of future droughts and uncertainties. This is a list of supply, storage, and conveyance projects that Zone 7 is exploring. They include looking at projects to bolster the reliability of conveyance through the Delta, looking at adding additional storage in key locations, so strategic locations north of the Delta and in the Delta, a potential desalination project with other Bay Area partners, potable reuse, which is a project that would treat or further treat recycled water to very high standards so that it would be suitable to augment drinking water, water purchases or transfers. So this is again, purchasing additional water supplies from willing sellers, something that Zone 7 is doing this year, and then some interties with our neighboring agencies. So as we look ahead, we are going to, of course, monitor these drought conditions that are evolving very quickly. We'll be working very closely with Zone 7, looking at the results of our conservation efforts, ramping up our messaging to our customers. And then in parallel, we'll be also working or continuing to work on developing long-term projects to increase water resiliency for our customers. And with that, that concludes my presentation. So I will stop sharing and happy to answer any questions.
Perfect, thank you. That was a lot of information from both agencies. I'd like to point out that we do have on the city's webpage, sanramon.ca.gov, under hot topics, we have a water conservation page where we have both annual updates from EBMUD and DSRSD. The presentations are there. Alice and Charles, I should get the presentation that you just conducted so we can put that up there as well. A lot of great tips. Charles, I was having flashbacks to my weekly landscaping duties. I call it a hobby to kind of make it feel a little bit better, but you know, every issue that you pointed out, I was like, yep, I have to fix that. I fixed that last week. And it's just, you know, no matter how much of an eye you keep on it from a week to week basis, you never know. Next thing you know, your fence is wet. So there's a lot of great water conservation tips, and thank you very much for your presentations today. I do want to point out that we are joined by Mayor Hudson as well. And Mayor, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to add at this point, please feel free to do so before we take it to the public questions.
I love the same question I asked Zone 7. So what happens when you get the request that we've run out of water to put out these fires? Do they start rating this 10% becomes 20%? How are we going to put out the fires? Nah, I don't want to go to John. John went through it too long. How are we going to put out the fires, John, if we don't build some dams or come up with at least a program to put out fires in 72 hours instead of 72 days? Eventually, we're going to run out of forests because these fires keep getting bigger. And my explanation is always, well, that's climate change. Well, that doesn't put out a fire. I mean, you could feel good that you said climate change, but how are we going to, this is July. These fires ran well into November. What the heck are we going to do if we don't get any rain before then? Has anybody thought about, she said, we're starting to talk about it at the board level. Is EBMUD starting to talk about it at the board level?
Well, Mayor Hudson, what I can tell you is our priority is if there's a fire and a CDF or a local fire agency needs water from a reservoir, from a helicopter drop or whatever, it's there for them to use. We want to make sure the fires are put out ASAP so we don't endanger people's property or lives and air quality. Do we need more water storage? Yes, we do. And I think when Jan was talking about some of the options, you know, we need to really seriously look at them from a standpoint of desalinization. The enlarged Los Vaqueros will play a huge role in building redundancy or in our water systems for many water agencies. If this does happen, and I hope it does happen, we need to work cooperatively with everybody. It is difficult to build new facilities. Certainly on a river, it's almost impossible now to build a new reservoir on a river. And I know the state is providing funds to do a project up called Sites Reservoir, which is north of us on the Sacramento. That's an off-stream reservoir that would be large. We need to do more of that, but nobody should be worried about the lack of water in terms of fighting fires. The water is available. It will be available. And when you really get down to it, it's not going to make that much of a difference in our total water supply from the water that's taken from our reservoirs to fight a fire.
John, I'm going to jump in. I'm not going to let this one go lightly because I know you've been through it. About the river part of it, that's fine. But I just want to go back to, we're talking about two different things, and there's probably four things you have to deal with. What people, agriculture, got to save the fishies, all the good stuff that we're talking about. But the reality is that these fires are getting bigger. And without having to do it, I believe Jan was speaking, when I look at Lake Oroville at July, and I remember the fire that went up there into November because we were calling Spare the Air days from November 1st on at the Air District, I see there's a problem. And my answer, the only way I can see it is you've got to have, if it has nothing to do with drinking water or anything else, you got to start thinking about a reservoir that's just set up, if nothing else, to sit there, maybe 10,000 acre feet. Isn't that about the size of Chabot? And when it's needed, because they drained that reservoir by the Caldecott when they were fighting that fire. And I'm looking at Lake Oroville. If they start using that for the fire, it'll be gone in a week.
Well,
All
again,
of it.
I think in terms of, Mayor Hudson, in terms of water availability, the water will be available for fighting fires. Everybody should feel comfortable that the water will be available. Do we need to have, and really long-term, what we need to be doing is proper forest management. And the federal government owns most of the lands in California.
Yeah.
And for decades, they have not managed the forest properly. Everybody likes to go into the forest and see all these trees that look great. You look at photos from 100, 150 years ago, our forest didn't look that way. They burned naturally. Actually, the Native American Indians would burn the forest periodically in order to keep the brush down, and the fires were not that severe.
Yeah.
We need to change our forest management practices. At EBMUD, we're firm believers in doing that. On our lands, we're actually reducing our ability for fighting fires up in our watershed. We spent last year $6 million on forest management for thinning the forest to reduce the fire hazard. Are fires going to happen? Yes. Are fires natural? Yes. If the forests are managed properly, the fires will be less severe, air quality will be not as impacted, and ultimately less water will be needed. And ironically, a thin forest produces more water into our system, because currently when it snows in a canopy of trees, much of that evaporates back to the sky. It doesn't fall onto the ground or into the rivers and streams. So we have to look at everything in a comprehensive way.
Yeah, that's the win. That's why I tried to duck John Coleman getting this answer. But the difference is, you're going to see that the latest research coming through the air districts, and they're going to get more and more say in this with EPA, is there is no amount of particulate matter that's safe. The 35 micrograms where you're heading for the hospital with asthma, they tried to drop to 32, and all of the scientists now are saying, no, it's 0. Well, give you a hint. Winter spare the air. 40% of the particulate matter in the air comes from fireplaces. And the forest is about as big a fireplace as you can get. My point is, the old way of saying nature does this and that, you still get particulate matter in the air. You've got more people we're going to put closer together. And somebody's going to have to come up with a standard. How do we put fires out in 72 hours instead of 72 days? Which brings me to the next point. For some reason, this state seems to think that they can blame everything on refineries and oil companies. And the Air District just passed Rule 6.5, which says we have to put a wet scrubber on at Chevron for about $1 billion and use an acre foot of water for this scrubber daily. And I just laughed. I go, sure, no problem. We got all the water you ever need. I mean, is anybody looking at this? There's 3 of these refineries. Do you have all 3 of it? Go ahead, John, take that one too. But I mean, these guys think all the conservation we're doing, I mean, the point is well taken. Everything you save this year goes towards next year, but we're building under the guise of climate change like it doesn't matter. But go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
Well, Rule 6.5 that you approved last week, out of the BACMA approved, out of the vote, the Chevron refinery is in our service area. And do I personally have a concern and issue on how much water might be used? Yes. What we need to find out is they do use a lot of recycled water. So will recycled water be able to be used in that scrubber to do the offset of the 1 acre, of the acre foot that you're talking about? I don't know. We had to, when we retooled working with Chevron to do recycled water, we had to do a lot of retooling of the refinery to make sure that we could meet the specifications of water quality they needed in the refinery. I don't know if it would work for the need on that scrubber or not. That's to be determined, and that has not been discussed at our board or any committee meetings yet.
A lot of water. Anyway,
well,
that's my rant.
Mayor, we do have about 10 more minutes for questions. So I'd like to turn it over to Simone. If we received any questions over the info line, please take it away, Simone.
Sure. Our first question is a follow-up to some of the grants that were mentioned for lawn replacement. What do residents need to do to qualify for those programs?
Alice, do you want to start off on that one?
Yeah, I'll just say a little bit and then Charles can talk about it a little bit more. And so this is again for East Bay Mud. So if you want to get a lawn replacement, one of those rebates from us, get in touch with us early. We do ask that you apply before you start the project because we need to go out and, verify and make sure that there's actually a lawn there that you're replacing. Since we're spending public dollars, we always want to make sure that we're using it cautiously. So it has to be a lawn that's, currently being irrigated, so that we are actually seeing some water savings as a result. And then, like Charles was talking about, we have this new rebate program that offers a little bit higher, double the dollar amount for that lawn replacement. For that, you need to use some more sustainable kind of water saving best practices, like, putting in native plants, using sheet mulching, using compost. If you don't do those things, you can still potentially get a rebate, but it's a smaller dollar amount. Charles, do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, the program's been very successful, especially during the time of drought. Now, Alice mentioned the first step is you have to contact us. Don't even break ground. And the reason why is we want to make sure you do it right and you don't put down some plastics or something like that that'll make you ineligible for the incentive. And one really good thing about these native landscapes, it sets you in such better shape for the next drought. So these native plants can handle this sort of thing. They've gone through it before. And so that helps everybody. It really, pushes that the water supply for multiple years going forward. So it has a lot of a long-term benefit effect on that one. So our website has a great list for plants. For what you can install. It talks about where you can find these sort of plants. Also tips on like maintaining them. So we've got a lot of good resources out there for you on this.
And I'll just add to everything Charles and Alice said. Sun 7's program is very similar. And just again, want to plug that they just recently increased the maximum amount from a single family home from $750 to $2,000. So this is a great time to look at rebates for turf replacement.
That's great. Thank you all. And we will include links to those resources on your websites in our video description afterwards and then on our website as well. Our next question is, what is the city of San Ramon doing to reduce water usage?
Well, I'll field that one. We've been, since the last drought and prior to the last drought, we've taken several steps removing any and all turf that we can in our landscaping areas. That's been going on for years and replacing it with, as Charles mentioned and Alice, the native and low water use plants where possible. We've also, and Charles mentioned this as well, you check your irrigation controller, make sure the timing is right. San Ramon has over 400 of those irrigation controllers that we need to manage for all of the landscaping. And it's been going on for several years now, but we've replaced all of them with a smart, they're called CalSense irrigation controllers. So we can organize them and time them from a central location so we don't have to send out staff every time something's going wrong. They detect leaks. And the best thing about the CalSense irrigation controllers is they will actually look at the moisture in the soil and help recommend different watering schedules based on the current moisture content in the soil. So it's helped save a lot of water. Plus, I think we're one of the highest cities in terms of use of recycled water. We have, I believe, almost all of Central Park now is on reclaimed water. So we've been, ever since the last drought, we've really been cranking things up to make sure that we're saving as much water as possible.
Yeah,
golf's on well water.
Well, I was just going to add, Stephen, that I did pull the numbers because collectively, because East Bay Mud, it's one program, 25% of the overall demand for San Ramon is met by recycled water.
And Steve, I do want to give the city of San Ramon a shout out. The last drought, you guys have been very active in our water budget program. You've done a great job of reducing water when we had that 14, 15, 16 drought, and you maintain that. So your landscaping staff they're good team to work with. So keep up the good work. And now we got that median rebate, so maybe we can get a little bit more to.
Well, we took out one fountain that's probably leaked for 50 years that went in when Canyon Lakes went in, but. I really like that. I thought I wouldn't. I thought that, it's hard. I'm a fountain person. Don't you dare go after Crow Canyon or that one Reynez put in. But, You know, that goes back to the days of, remember this name, John? Victoria Nadorf, who thought there should be a fountain on every corner. I mean, they look great until the pump goes out. And I think that keeping the newest equipment at the pools is another thing. Make sure there are no leaks. I know when we did City Walk and 4,500 homes, I think I put the developer into shock when I said, no, cut out the pools. I mean, you've got 3 sports clubs there that you can use that. And the little things, I don't know which one of you said that before, watch the toilets, watch all these things. Everything's going to be new, everything's going to be solar. Leads for water, that's what we're doing. But you know, it's hard to go back and retro, but it's not that hard to use the latest and greatest. And I think that's where we're headed, because I guarantee you building is not going to stop. It's not going to stop. So get that dam built, John. Raise the dam. I still laugh at that when I tell you, and then I'll get off my soapbox, that the first time I heard about Los Vaqueros, I was 7. And my aunt was working on it. 7, and I'm not 17 or 27. If you guys can get that in the next 10 years,
That's
I'll
the
pay
goal.
double my water bill.
That's recorded, Dave.
Yeah, but I won't be alive, so go ahead.
And Mayor, you did mention the fountains. That's we did get a lot of questions about that during the last drought. We adhere to all the state schedules for operating fountains. Unfortunately, if you do drain a fountain, you start creating cracks and other maintenance issues and the potential for having to replace the pumps. So in drought conditions, they are on limited schedule. But Simone, we might have time for one more if we just go a little bit over here, if you want to end up with one last question.
Okay, are there any potential penalties being considered for using too much water? If so, how would usage be calculated?
Well, I'll field this first from EBMUD, since we are not in a mandatory drought reduction category. At this point in time, there are no penalties for using too much water. We're really asking people collectively work together, reduce your water usage. In the past, people have done a phenomenal job, and I'm hoping that that's the way it remains.
I think I know where that one came from, Simone. John, there was a breakage of some water pipe up at the Faria project. So if they're developing and something breaks, is there any kind of thing set in place, like you'd fine them or?
No, at this point, what we really want to do is we'd rather use the carrot than the stick.
Good.
The carrot is much more, it's a positive way to reinforce what we need to do. And if we're meeting our goals that we've established and the state established, there should be no reason to use the stick.
And DSRSD is similar. We are not in a stage of mandatory cutbacks. We are asking for voluntary conservation. So penalties, conservation rates are not on the table right now.
Yeah. Well, I cut back on my coffee at City Hall, so we should be down about 10%.
Good.
Well,
You
with
laugh.
that,
Steve knows I'm serious.
yeah. Mayor, your coffee consumption is second to none. Yeah, a full 10 cupper sits right on his desk. And with that, I'd like to thank our guests today. Director Coleman, I know you said call you John, but I'm one of those sticklers. Alice and Charles from EBMUD, thank you very much. That was a lot of great information. Jan from DSRSD, thank you as well. Again, the presentations will be up on our website, sanramon.ca.gov. If you look for hot topics under water conservation, you can see links to both agencies and their presentations. And also thank you, Mayor Hudson, for attending this morning. And
You'll need fire reservation.
There you go. And with that, I'll end our presentation. We'll have next month's in August. We are doing these monthly, again, live on YouTube, and then you can watch the recordings later with a topic yet to be determined. So thank you very much. And thank you.